Every town has its history, and Marlborough, Massachusetts is no exception. With architecture and standing structures dating back to the 1600s, this colonial town harbors secrets of the paranormal within its borders. This is the Frank D. Walker House, located in the most historic area of the city, and shares its grounds with Old Common Cemetery, one of the oldest graveyards in the Northeast. While I was on premises, I captured an EVP of what sounds like someone saying, "Say grace." Check it out. No one accompanied me on this excursion, and ambient noise from the city is identifiable by how far away the sound source is. This male voice seems very close, yet this is the only anomaly I found going through the footage. I will say that I do get an odd feeling standing in this graveyard. Almost like my solar plexus opens up, or there's some sort of soft hollowness there. Very odd. Within the Frank Walker House, there have been reports of male spirits in periodic clothing gathering in the auditorium of this building. There have been many witnesses to these specters, and often the scent of cigar smoke is present as well. Within the walls of the Frank Walker House, objects have been observed to move of their own accord in what some might refer to as a light poltergeist activity. The Old Common Cemetery, located in the back of the building, houses many well-known historical figures who were buried over 300 years ago. One particularly interesting facet of these burying grounds is the small memorial and plaque in the southeast corner. Reportedly, Native American bodies were exhumed from elsewhere and reinterred in the Old Common Cemetery. They perished in 1665, were exhumed in 1951, and reburied again in 1992. What did the town do with the bodies for 41 years? If there is any reason for paranormal activity to be present in this graveyard, disturbing Native American burial grounds to inter them in a colonial graveyard later would be the most prominent. Approaching Sligo Hill, an ominous structure gazes over the recreational areas at the apex. There are many who believe spirits have inhabited the ground on which this water tower stands from a long troubled history, mostly due to circumstance. Able to hold over 120,000 gallons of water, this water tower was constructed many years ago to combat some of the wildfires that happened in the area. Now, with that in mind, there is quite a haunted history to this construct, and it happens to do with people enjoying themselves, trying to climb up, falling in, off, or around, purposely or not. In many cases of accidents stemming from the tower, curiosity seekers would climb the ladder and slip, or make it to the top and lose their balance. But according to public records, there are quite a few incidents which indicated something premeditated. Although the tower has been out of service for some time, it has been repurposed as a cell tower, as most defunct water towers are. There have been many records of folks who have thrown themselves off this particular tower, and this sort of reminds me of the Hollywood H on the Hollywood sign. They would come here to commit suicide. Now, on one occasion, there was a small boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old, who had scaled up the tower and somehow slipped inside. Now, what I understand through my research is that they were unable to retrieve him. Therefore, for all we know, the body's still inside of this cavernous construct. Some have said this little boy can be spotted walking the catwalk or strolling along the base of the tower. It's horrific to think his body may still be inside that enormous metallic hollow, a silent coffin, just out of reach of a proper burial. This is the Peter Rice Homestead, which is owned by the Marlborough Historical Society. Built in 1688, the house has seen many families come and go. There was one particular family of interest by the surname of Russell who inherited the property in 1850. Of the couple's 17 children, one girl named Sophronia was constantly ill, and she lived in a bedroom on the second floor, never stepping foot out of the room for the duration of her life. In 1894, the house was sold to another family with one stipulation, that Sophronia would stay in that room and be looked after until her death, which occurred in 1903. People have reported cold breezes, lights floating in the windows at night, whispers, feelings of being watched, and fleeting apparitions of a woman in a long red dress. Curiously enough, I've never actually heard anything particular in the way of paranormal activity when it comes to this graveyard. However, I happened to just find this when I was out here in Marlborough looking at other locations. So, being the city's oldest graveyard, there's a very good chance something still lingers in the way of activity. It'll just take the right person to find it, and of course, somebody to inquire. Whether this is significant or not, I'm getting a real strong feeling of just the antiquity of this particular place. I mean, it feels old walking through this graveyard, and not for the obvious reasons. I don't know what it is. It's in the air that I'm breathing, and it's kind of making my chest swell in a very uncomfortable fashion. Very, very interesting graveyard. Of course, this is the city's oldest graveyard. I'm seeing graves that go back all the way to the mid-1700s within this place. This is absolutely incredible. I'm surprised at the electricity that you feel when you come into some of these places, almost like it doesn't belong here. You walk onto these grounds and expect to find a sense of peace, perhaps a serenity, and the majority of the time I find just the opposite. Very strange why it would be a graveyard, again, a place that people are interred in the last moments of their physical lives. Not exactly the place I'd like to hang out. Now, I'm sure, like myself, there are a majority of you out there who are maybe getting a little tired of seeing these graveyards, but there's a very good reason that we continue to cover them, and that's because they're so historically significant, and whatever energy that may be in these places may actually have historic significance in respect to the people who were buried here and were such prominent names in the development of this town and the surrounding cities. As the paranormal continues to pique our curiosity, we will seek these places of reverence and solitude to feel those who once existed in the same spaces we inhabit. Even though the outward appearances and purposes of buildings and constructs throughout the town may have shifted, it seems we can never really erase the past, and what is left are whispered memories of those who lived and lost, swallowed by the progression of linear perception. Thank you all for joining us tonight, here on Dark Hour Paranormal.